My name is Mary Galvez, and I'm the director of the Thought to Action Entrepreneurship Institute here at Colgate. And I'm really so pleased to introduce our speaker today, Maggie Dunn. Maggie was a 3-year student at TIA where she actually worked on her nonprofit that she's now running full-time. So a little of her background is Maggie Dunn is the founder and CEO of Lakota Children's Enrichment Incorporated, LCE, which is a nonprofit organization that empowers youth in the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota through opportunities in the arts, education, sports, leadership, and mentorship. Maggie is a 2013 magna cum laude graduate of Colgate, where she concentrated in Native American Studies and Religion, and she received the university's top award, which is the Alumni Corporation's 1819 award. She studied social entrepreneurship at the business schools at the University of Cambridge at King's College and Cornell University, the Johnson School of Management, as an Ariane de Rothschild Fellow, which was a position funded by the Edmund de Rothschild Foundation. Maggie founded and will produce TEDx Youth at Dinosaur Park in April 2016. This is planned to be an annual event in Rapid City, South Dakota, which is designed to elevate youth voices on important issues. Maggie is a ferocious advocate for indigenous communities globally and is a frequent public speaker. Her written work has been published in the New York Times, the Daily Beast, and others. Maggie has received numerous awards for her services, including the 2014 President's Call to Service Award from President Barack Obama, the 2014 Opportunity Collaboration Quartz Fellowship, the 2012 Grand Prize in Glamour Magazine's Top 10 College Women, which we're very proud of you, a 2012 Newman Civic Fellow by Campus Compact. In addition, Maggie was named a 2013 Next Generation Leader by the Women in the World Foundation and was twice awarded a Critical Language Scholarship from the U.S. Department of State to study Bengali. Maggie's an advisory board member for the RFK Young Leaders, a leadership council member for Convergent Center for Policy Resolution, and a business mentor for our own Colgate's Thought into Action Entrepreneurship Institute. Previously, Maggie worked as a grant writer for Pueblo de Cachita Tribal Council and as an international research intern in the office of Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus at Grameen Bank in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Maggie is also one of the newest members of the Board of Trustees here at Colgate, and she's here this weekend for her first board meeting. So I want to give a warm welcome to Maggie.
Thank you very much, Mary, for the introduction. And I also want to thank Colgate and the Thought to Action Institute for having me here, Native American Studies program as well. And I want to thank all of you for coming out today. I see some familiar faces in the crowd. It's really great to see you here. And for those I don't know, I'm excited to get to know you. So a little bit about me, other than that long introduction. Thank you again very much. So I graduated from Colgate in 2013. As Mary said, I was a Native American Studies major, a religion minor. On campus, I was very involved in lots of different clubs, in the Cove, Link staff, figure skating club, Canosioni, and really anything that had to do with public service and just getting involved. I was what some might call somewhat overextended, but I loved every minute of it. According to the United Nations, the definition for youth is through age 25, so technically I'm still a youth. I have 1 year left. I'm loving every minute of it. And as Mary said, I'm founder and CEO of Lakota Children's Enrichment. This is an organization that I founded when I was in high school. And I came to Colgate with this organization, not in my wildest dreams thinking that I would leave with this as my job. I really am excited to share with you a bit today about my journey, about some of the challenges I've faced, about some lessons I've learned, and some recommendations I would have for you all, those who are interested in getting more engaged in public service, those who are perhaps seeking a career in social enterprise, nonprofits, the social good sector at large. So up here as well is my contact information, which I will share with all of you that would like it before you leave. So before we get any further, just a little bit to gauge the room. Is anyone here, have you taken courses in Native American Studies, or are you interested? Okay, you have one. or involved with the program in any capacity. Has anyone spent time on a Native American reservation before? Okay. For those of you who haven't raised your hand, just for us to take a moment to recognize that the land that we're here on now was formerly owned by Native American nations. And we are surrounded here in upstate New York by various different nations. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy or the Iroquois Nation. You might have some friends who've taken core Iroquois, or if you have that opportunity to take that class, I would definitely encourage you to. And is anyone here interested in social enterprise or doing good? Good. Well, okay, so now we know who we have in the room. And I would like to, especially since we do not have that many people familiar with Native American history, just to contextualize the work that I do so that you have an understanding of some of the terms I'm going to use. We're going to start at the beginning. So, it's my organization. This is the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, a photo at least. As you can see, the land is flat, but I can also tell you that it's very variable. It's very dry. Many parts of the reservation are actually like a desert. It's very hard to grow things there, but it is really spectacular, home to a lot of wildlife and people. The Pine Ridge Reservation is home to the Oglala Lakota Nation. This is the flag for the Lakota Nation. Within the United States of America, as well, this is the state of South Dakota, and this is the location where the reservation is within the state. You can see it's actually quite large. South Dakota in general is quite large. Just to contextualize, this landmass is actually the size of the state of Connecticut, the red piece. So Pine Ridge is the 6th largest reservation in the United States. And in the United States of America, we have 566 federally recognized nations. There are an additional 200 to 300 that are actually still fighting for state or federal recognition. I do not claim this to be the most accurate map, but it's here to give you a little bit of an idea where most of these nations traditionally reside. Something that I do with some of my interns every summer is they go out onto the streets and kind of canvass people, asking how many nations do you think that there are? Are you aware that there are Native American nations in the United States? How many do you think that there are? And we never have gotten, I don't believe, 565. We generally get around, the general guesses are somewhere around 5, 10, perhaps at the most 20. But I just put this up here because I'd like you to recognize how many people we're talking about that have different traditions, different cultures, different languages. There is no one image of Native America. There is no one need that every nation has. It's a very diverse community, and the term Native America in and of itself is a generalization that's categorizing many different people together. So again, just as a bit of context. So the Pine Ridge Reservation is where my organization works. It's, like I said, about the size of Connecticut, home to about 50,000 people. And this is somewhat home to very rich culture, traditions, language, religion, various diversity of experiences, but also many challenges. Pine Ridge is made up of the 3 poorest counties in the United States. Every now and then it alternates with a county in West Virginia, but for the most part, this is the economically most depressed part of our country. This is the worst of the worst in terms of a community at large not having access to basic needs. So that's not just people in their home not having access to basic needs. This also is in the schools, not having access to books, to resources, to lab tables, to teachers. There's a lot of services that are very underfunded. and denied. And as a result as well, many health challenges, fetal alcoholism, diabetes, mental health challenges that are not met with adequate support. So I just go over this parts to help you understand and contextualize why my work is so important and why this is so important. And I think as well, the piece about how many nations there are in the United States, I think many of you may have had a similar experience to me in which I did not learn anything about Native American history other than once memorizing the names of the nations in my state. In my elementary and high school, middle school and high school experience, I had to seek this information on my own. So why don't we learn that there are 565 nations when we learn that there are 50 states? It's just, it's a number that's part of the fabric of our nation. Similar to why when we learn there's federal and state government, why don't we also learn there are tribal governments that have their own constitutions, that have their own laws, that have their own sovereign entities? It's a fabric of our nation that we overlook, that so often is invisible. So if nothing else, coming here today, recognizing that you are doing your part in becoming more educated about this topic and thus having a deeper understanding that can create a more inclusive country for us to be aware of each other's experiences. So thank you. Certainly, I could go on and on. I did major in this, so I could write a book. Some would say my thesis was way too long. Maybe not for the better. But if you have any questions on this topic, please email me, reach out to me at any time. I do not always like to have that many photos of the depressed parts of the community, but I do have one photo of a housing situation that I'd like to show you, just so you understand that also most of the homes on the reservation are used trailers that are donated to the reservation. So they're already 30 or 40 years old when they get there, and they do not withstand the extreme hot and extreme cold temperatures. So there's as well a housing crisis. So when I first went to the Pine Ridge Reservation, I was in high school. And I am from New York originally, and from Westchester County. And it was very different from anything I'd really experienced, in that I'd never been faced with rural poverty. And I did not know any of this history that I just somewhat outlined for you. And so it was a very confusing situation for me, because I felt like I could have easily lived my whole life without being aware that right in our nation's backyard there was this situation, and a nation that was looking for allies and advocates to help their movement. I didn't really quite know where to start, so I went to my teachers, my high school teachers, and asked for help. They didn't have any knowledge on the subject, so I started writing using my research papers as opportunities to learn more about the issues. And I started writing articles in my local newspaper about what I did know and asking for help for people to help me mobilize. After volunteering in the reservation, I met people there, I built these relationships, and I invested in those relationships. I kept in touch. I sent emails, I sent phone calls, and got to know people and what their needs were. And I didn't go, with a plan to fix an issue or create, they need help, let's help the community. No, I went there to learn, and over time, in partnership with people who were my friends, found a way that some teachers told me, they didn't have enough of one book, Romeo and Juliet, to teach their entire high school class. And I thought, well, I have an extra copy of Romeo and Juliet, and I'm sure I could rally, some support around that. So I started in a very targeted, specific item, addressing a very specific need. And soon I started getting wish lists from teachers, and I started, asking around, having a box. It ended up getting to a point where I actually would come home from school, and because I had written these articles, that people were just knew me as the book girl, so they just started dropping stuff off at my house, to the point where I didn't have room. My entire living room was not that large, and just a library, so we're shipping, receiving and shipping and sorting, and obviously making sure we're not sending inappropriate material and that it was going to people who wanted to receive it on the other end. But just goes to show, it started as something that I didn't quite anticipate becoming a nonprofit organization. I just knew that I wanted to help, and this was what I just started kind of doing. So over the years, with my writing, I was contacted by a local corporate lawyer who had read many of my articles, and she said, I've read a lot of what you're doing. Have you ever considered creating a nonprofit organization? I'd be willing to do that, help you do that for free. And so with that support, this lawyer, Uju Mahatma, is now on our board of directors. And with my family's support of saying, okay, let's learn about this together, let's go through this, I created what became Lakota Children's Enrichment. So over the years, we've grown from an entity that essentially provided books and specific goods to institutions within the reservation to an organization that supports the emotional growth and well-being of young Lakota youth, that provides opportunities, whether that's through an experience such as a youth summit, or through our writing and art contests, or through our grant program, opportunities for youth to participate in music, sports, art, and writing. We're working with 4,000 youth in South Dakota. We're engaging volunteers all across the country and raising awareness about issues facing Native American youth and nations today. This was about almost 8 years ago, so it's actually been a really long time that I've been committed to building these relationships very humbly, and it didn't happen overnight. But I want today to spend a little bit of time talking to you about some lessons that I learned and some challenges that I faced, quite honestly, and some things that I think if you're interested in the social good and the public sector, just some words of advice. So as I do that, I will flip through a few photos and explain those to you as well. Another something to note that I did not note earlier is that the United Nations has actually classified the Pine Ridge Reservation as one of the most marginalized and historically wronged indigenous communities in the world, along with the Roma, that was the other indigenous community that was highlighted in that study in 2009. But we've also had an ongoing youth suicide crisis that happened in 2009 and now again this year. And so that's an issue that we've been responding to, and that is on kind of the forefront. If you Google the reservation, you will find many of these negative things that are happening. But what we also think is so important is highlighting the positives, because many of the things that the media likes to focus on are very, sensationalized, negative, but there's certainly so much more that they could focus on, such as the history or all of the positive things that are happening in the community. And so one of the challenges that I'd like to talk to you about is kind of working at home, the difference that the media how they like to portray people struggling at home versus struggling abroad. And when I say struggling, I'm recognizing that that's a very vague term. And I mean, I'm referring to someone in need or someone who could use your help generally. So when we see ads for, hold on. So many of the campaigns that you may see that would like you to donate, for example, to help youth internationally might look like this. That might look like a somewhat familiar photo. Yes, no? Something that you might be used to seeing from certain organizations asking for your donations to feed hungry children. So a young child, distended belly, flies crawling all over, very vulnerable and very innocent, right? We're saturated in the media with these images. But when we think of poverty in America, it's more from images that we see and many times might choose to ignore. And the connotation surrounding that and the dialogue can often be negative, assuming that that person made bad choices, is aid dependent. And something that I'd like to highlight just about that is that certainly that's not the reality, right? But storytelling in nonprofits, in advocacy, and in social enterprise is essential for you to communicate both your mission and what's happening on the ground, but also for you to connect and engage new users and donors and volunteers. But it's really important that you do that with grace and in a respectful way and in a way that the people you serve would be okay with. And we see a lot of the times that these images that are used, that young woman probably doesn't know that her photo is being used, for example. She might speak a different language and not have access to the internet and not know that that story is being used to engage their audience. But in the United States, it's more of a level, if the work is being done in the United States, more often than not, it's more of a level playing field in terms of access to that content. And it holds a higher accountability for storytelling, which I think is a good thing, because if you're putting a story out there about someone, they should know what you're saying, right? And in what light and be able to confirm that that's an accurate representation and that they're okay being used as part of that story. Because when we tell stories in this way without actually engaging and informing the person we're telling their story about, we are disempowering them. And so while domestic entities might have, in some people would call a limitation, I think it's also an opportunity because it forces you to be more creative to find ways to captivate people's attention. And one of the ways that my organization, Lakota Children's Enrichment, actually used that discomfort as an opportunity to create a dialogue about this is we created our annual writing, art, and spoken word contest. Because as I mentioned before, so much of the storytelling that's done about the reservation, not by people from the reservation, is very negative. It's always about alcoholism or gang violence or different traumas like this, but it's rarely about the youth, and then it's almost never from them. So we created this annual event to highlight the voices of youth and their works and what they have to say. So through music, art, spoken word, and they can actually express themselves. And this past year, our contest was viewed by over 1 million people online. The work was viewed and shared by over 1 million people. We had multiple youth actually go on the radio to read their work. I encourage you to check it out online. It's really spectacular. This is what you're seeing right now is we had a street graffiti artist, Andres Gallardo. He's really fantastic. Come out to South Dakota. One of the winners from the middle school category had designed this dream catcher image with "Why let your dreams be caught and not so why not let them be caught? Why not? Okay. Don't let your dreams get caught in the dream catcher is the essence of the quote. So Andres does make stencils and spray paints. So we had vinyl records donated, turned all the art into stencils, and had made thousands of these records and gave out free art throughout the community. So again, another way that youth were able to express themselves, raise awareness, and share their voice. That's an empowering way of doing messaging straight from the youth themselves. So now we also function with another way that we created an innovative partnership is we formed a partnership with Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology in Indiana. And so we are actually the feeder organization that selects young women each summer to attend a STEM camp. So young women who show promise in maths and sciences. They wanted to engage a more diverse group of young people, and we have lots of young people that don't always receive these opportunities, and so we created an application process, and we partner with this institute to make this a possibility for young women every summer. And so I think another note on just these partnerships, and I'm going to switch it up in a minute because I just want to keep you all engaged, but I think in today's day and age, we have to treat nonprofit organizations like they are for-profit organizations. They are businesses. They have budgets that need to be managed. We have to acquire resources for them, and it's highly competitive in many cases to find grant money. But by creating new partnerships where there haven't been these types of partnerships before, that's how the nonprofit sector, I believe, will survive. Another comment I'd like to make on just social enterprise and philanthropy is that, social enterprise, I have a little chart here. So there's traditionally the private sector, which would be for-profit companies, public sector, civil society organizations, and where they overlap, all of where they overlap is really categorized as social enterprise generally. Social enterprise is a very vague term. But within that could be such as Warby Parker or Tom's, which is a giving model of you buy one pair of glasses or you buy one pair of shoes, and the company has a priority to make a social impact by giving one pair of glasses or one pair of shoes to someone who needs it. JP Morgan Chase has a social impact investing division that they consider social enterprise. So that means they are making investments for their clients in companies that they have vetted as socially responsible. And so they say that the net impact of that investment is positive in a social way as well as financial return. Then you have my organization, a nonprofit organization. We do not have a way that we generate income. We rely upon donations. And so that's really the complete opposite side of the spectrum from JP Morgan Chase. So there's this wide range, but at the same, just a comment I'd like to make is social enterprise has really taken off in the past 4 years or so as really common knowledge across many people. You yourself may have bought products or services that you consider being from a social enterprise. But I want to remind you that giving shoes and giving coats and giving glasses as a one-for-one model is important and great and a great step for business, but everything else in between that a community might need in a time of crisis, when they need to be supported, after a natural disaster, if places need to be rebuilt or emotional support even needs to be provided, so much of that type of flexibility where the sole priority is to make a social impact as opposed to also having a financial return is important. And I do not think will be ever replaced fully by social enterprise. Because there's just a lot of value in our community-based nonprofit organizations that can never fully be served by a social enterprise model. So just something to keep in mind, because I think the social enterprise can seem very glamorous to many people. It seems like the best of both worlds, but sometimes it is too good to be true. So if your priority is to make a social impact, I encourage you to look deeply at the organizations you're supporting in that space to make sure that the social impact is actually as large as you are led to believe by the, again, media tactics. So, on that note, there are a few lessons that and things that I've learned. If you're interested in the nonprofit sector, really any and every class you take at Colgate is helping you in some way and preparing you with a skill set that will be valuable. As many of the challenges that I have highlighted, there's a need to be flexible, to adapt quickly to tough situations, to think out of the box. Writing, being a good writer is critical because, as I told you, storytelling is so important, but also the ability to synthesize either a situation or just information and be able to cut it down into a short piece of information that people can read and also understand the whole point, whether that's a current event that's impacting your community or a message that you need to get out to your followers and volunteers when they don't have time to read more than a sentence. Those skills are all skills that you gain at Colgate. And if you're looking for things to make you stand out of the pack, the more skills you have, the better, honestly, because I think the hiring in nonprofits can be more selective just because there are fewer hires generally. So graphic design, video editing, photography, financial skills, absolutely. And I would say if you're strong in finance, then you actually stand out of the pack because there are going to be fewer people that know how to do accounting and budgeting, balancing a budget, and a willingness, enthusiasm to fundraise and charismatic nature also will just naturally give you success in this sector. But there are so many resources at Colgate that you can take advantage of while you're here. Many of these programs that organizations use are free for you to use in the digital media lab, like Photoshop and Final Cut Pro. So I really encourage you. I didn't even realize they were there until I used a different computer the week I was writing my senior thesis because I was up all night for like 3 days in a row. It was not, I don't recommend. But the point was you had to switch to the digital media lab and realize that it existed and that it had all of that equipment. And I only had one more day at Colgate. And I was like, well, that's great. But I'm trying to pass on that information to you and pay it forward so that you know it exists. Because honestly, that is expensive and very valuable software. And if you can just even figure out how to use it, that's a really important skill. Not only just to put on your resume, I'm not saying just to put on your resume, but to actually use, that you will use, whether it's a for-profit business, a nonprofit business, or just you creating and maintaining your personal brand, how you market yourself and what you are looking to accomplish. So that's one lesson. Another lesson is that your youth is an asset. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And if they do tell you otherwise, then I don't know why they would tell you that. Because basically, I started my organization when I was in high school. And I'm not trying to say you need to go back to high school and start a nonprofit and then travel back in time and be like here with it now. It's not too late, but the sooner you start, if there's an issue you care about or something you want to accomplish or an entity you want to create, the sooner you start doing and stop thinking and just start doing, the more support you're going to generate, the more people around you and your idea that are going to come together and want you to succeed. People love young people that want to make a difference in the world. If I see a young person, who, like a 10-year-old who tells me they want to make a difference, I want to do everything I possibly can to have them maintain their enthusiasm and their optimism, and I want to see them succeed. It's just, it makes you smile, because there are, so I just encourage you to think about that. One example that I'll give, unfortunately I do not have a photo here to illustrate, is that when I was at Colgate and part of Thought into Action, which I participated in for 3 years, and I highly recommend, you participating if you have an idea, something you want to accomplish, and if you want to create and maintain relationships with alumni, honestly, get involved. But Sir Richard Branson came to speak at Colgate University my junior year. And I had been recognized by Glamour magazine, actually because someone at Career Services had forwarded me the application and said, you might want to apply. And I thought, all right, whatever, ha ha. And then I ended up actually receiving this recognition that completely changed the visibility for an issue that I cared about and enabled me to do more. They gave me $20,000 as an award that was made out to me personally, but we didn't have a website at the time. We had just a public Facebook page because I was too, I don't know why. I'm very technically challenged sometimes, so that was part of the reason. But also, I was like, well, I'm going to donate this to the nonprofit so that we can really ramp it up. And Richard Branson came to Colgate the week after, and the timing just happened to be perfect. Because I was involved with Thought to Action, I found a way into this Q&A session, and Glamour had given me a giant cardboard check, and I figured, well, I'm going to pitch to one of the richest men in the world because I happen to be in the same room as him. Why not? YOLO. So anyway, I didn't really ask permission. I would say it was not appropriate. And it definitely wasn't. If I had actually really asked permission, I probably would have been told no. But I figured, so I had two of my friends who I trust, listen to me practice over and over and over my pitch. I had got it down from 5 rambling minutes down to literally 60 seconds. And, saying that I'm Maggie Dunn. I won Glamour Magazine's Top College Woman contest last week. They gave me $20,000 to invest in my nonprofit organization. A $20,000 check, at which point I held up the giant $20,000 check and was like, I believe in what I'm doing so much that I'm going to invest all of this into Lakota Children's Enrichment so that we can do so much more. My question for you is if you know any potential celebrity humanitarian donors that would be willing to match my check. Because I see a window of opportunity here. I have not yet announced what I'm doing with this money, so whoever decides to match it will get good PR from Colgate University, from Glamour Magazine, and from me. And then he laughed and said, basically I had to convince another individual to give me $20,000, and then he would give me $20,000. I ended up getting both donations, and then I asked the public to match it, got an additional $20,000. So I went from having no money in the bank to making it rain in about a week and a half. And again, the venue in which I asked for this donation was wildly inappropriate. But I was young, and I was a student. If I had been a 30-year-old alum that happened to get in there and made that pitch, it probably wouldn't have gone over so well, and I probably would have gotten in trouble. So that's just one example of how when you're a young person and you are bold, and I'm not saying go out and break rules, but I'm just saying take risks within the ability that you can in your space of comfort zone. Try to step outside of it, and you never know. You just never know. You don't know what other people are thinking. You can think you know what they know, but it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, if you ask for help, you're going to find people who want to help you, whether that's your professors, whether it's people in the administration here at Colgate, whether it's the Colgate Alumni Network, which is ridiculously strong, and Colgate people just want to help Colgate people, and that's actually very unique. A lot of schools aren't like that, I've found. So, you can make a really big difference. So I'm so excited to see you go on and make a difference. The other thing I want to say is you don't need to be the founder. If you care about nonprofits or a social, making a difference, the only time that you should really found a nonprofit organization is if no one else is doing it, right? If there's an organization that might exist nationally and isn't working and is never going to work, and you've contacted them, they're not interested in working in the geographic area where you want to work, then maybe there's a need, a real compelling need, that there needs to be an organization there to address it, and you want to found it. In my case, I founded an organization because there was no other organization working in Pine Ridge Reservation doing this stuff. In general, Native American communities, organizations working in that space is very much underrepresented in philanthropy and the nonprofit sector. So there are fewer organizations. There should be more. So that was one reason why I founded one. But I guess my message for you is if you have an issue and there's something that bothers you when you wake up and when you go to sleep and you just want to make a difference and you want to do something about that, do your research. And it doesn't matter, what stage you are in your career. If you want to get involved and make a difference, it's something that could be as little of a commitment as you want or as big. It could turn out being a complete change in your career or the beginning of your career. Or it could be something that you join the board of or you volunteer once a week. There's so many ways that you can get involved. And also, as an undergraduate, and this is relevant for everyone, but there are boards you can join, like junior boards for organizations. So you never know in what capacity you could get involved. I'm really serious about this. We've had other Colgate students, for example, that joined as a volunteer, like Amanda Brown, for example, of an organization working with Nepal. And ultimately, her volunteerism earned her a title within the organization that ultimately led to her actually taking over the organization after graduation. So you never know where it's going to go. And there are lots of, if you want a leadership role, it's possible to get one, and I'm happy to help with that, But at the same time, like I said, it's important to do some preliminary research first and not just say, I love baby sloths, okay? But I know nothing about baby sloths, so I can't exactly help you from that point. But if you've said, well, I did my research and I found that the World Wildlife Foundation is doing incredible work with baby sloths, but I don't know how to get involved, then I can help you. And I can say, well, let's go on LinkedIn. Let's see if there's any Colgate alums there. There is. Okay, we're going to cold call them. We'll figure it out. But it just takes a little bit of Googling and a little bit of direction, a little bit of mentorship, and you can completely get involved. The other thing is just that there's not just one career path to giving back. And like I said, I'm just checking time, because I want to leave time for questions, so I went a little bit over where I wanted to go. But you all seem engaged, so you all get a gold star. Yeah, no one career path to giving back, basically like that if you can go build up your toolkit and say you leave Colgate and go into finance and you ultimately in 10 years decide that you're ready for a change, you could be the CFO of Save the Children. Everything that you do can add value to the sector. And like I said, it doesn't have to be your day job. Like you can still be involved and find ways to give back. So in closing, I guess I just want to end with a quote from someone who you all might know, Robert F. Kennedy. So in a speech that he gave in 1968 to the University of Notre Dame, he was addressing a group of students and he said, this is 1968, "There are children in the United States with bloated bellies and sores of disease on their bodies. There are children in the United States who eat so little that they fall asleep in school and do not learn. We must act, and we must act now. These are our responsibilities. If we cannot meet them, then we must ask ourselves what kind of a nation we really are. Then we must ask ourselves what we really stand for. We must act, and we must act now." That was in 1968. Where have we come since then? Not too far. We have a lot of work to do, and in whatever way, big or small, even just coming here today, you're making a difference, and you do have the opportunity and the power to change the world, every single one of you, and so let's do it. I'm excited for you. Thank you for coming. And if you have any questions, one last thing, apply for fellowships and scholarships, because we need more students applying for fellowships and scholarships. and you should just throw your name in the hat. Like, there's no commitment, but if you don't apply, you don't give yourself the option to apply. And that's also another great way to see the world, to change the world. It's not for everyone, but if you're interested, that's also some way, like, feel free to contact me, and I applied for a lot of these different opportunities, and if you're looking for one you might be eligible for, maybe you don't find it, I'm here as a resource for that as well. So I just want to see you succeed. Go Gate. So does anyone have any questions about anything? Any question? No question is a stupid question. Yes?
I'm really interested in what you said about the kind of storytelling aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also super interested in what you said about paper writing skills being a good thing. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
But so one of the things that strikes me is you are obviously working really hard to strike a balance with your organization between the kind of storytelling that is with a brand of storytelling that gives people a sense of the urgency of your mission, but at the same time a kind of storytelling that focuses on empowerment rather than on the kind of needy, the kind of narrative of need and human destitution. And I wonder if you've run into problems with like how to put it, like with the possibility that people are sort of more galvanized or more engaged with the needy destitution narrative than they would be with the empowerment narrative, right? Like is there a way in which that effort to portray people as empowered and as agents could actually interfere with the work that you want to do to get people to get people engaged because they sense that there's an urgency?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because it's so true, and it's for people. So we're like a movement, and there's so many different parts of the movement, and I'm also gonna, three things. One, first of all, if any of you are feeling overwhelmed right now, or in no matter what sense of the word that is, or if you're feeling like there's some issue you care about and it just seems too big, and you just don't even know, it's like you don't see the results of your efforts, so why just keep doing it? First of all, don't think that you ever could fix it, because then you're setting this unrealistic expectation for yourself, like, I'm gonna fix world hunger. All right, like, good luck. But if I wanna make an impact on world hunger, that's more doable. Like, think of yourself as part of the solution, because we all need to work together. And back to your point about the storytelling, it's so important for people to be able to understand the need and why the services need to be provided and why this is so important and why this is real-time lives being affected, and also not impact negatively the people that are being served. It's like walking, in some ways it can be like walking a tightrope and just being very sensitive and graceful about it, and when in doubt, always ask people. I think we see conflict more often when stories are put out there or friendships are made with photographers and images are taken, but maybe they didn't know that they were all going to be on the New York Times front page type of thing. Like creating that, and there's a need for journalism that's raw and real and now, but the relationship piece is also very critical because it can affect people's emotional state. So I guess there's no formula for it, but and each organization has to make that decision themselves. What we decided to do was create this opportunity for the writing contest where we are actually raising awareness in a very deep way of people's human experiences, but they're writing their own stories. So they're empowered by that narrative because it's theirs, and I'm not paraphrasing it and I'm not writing it for them. I'm just helping create that visibility that they put out there themselves. So I think whenever possible, empowering the community to tell their own stories is always better. because it's their story. And then just having resources available on our website is what we're doing now. But I think, yeah, just thinking about, because it can be kind of contradictory when you're trying to empower a community, but you're actually disempowering them by taking away their voice. And also recognizing that younger people have access to technology and phones, and are synthesizing this information that they might not fully understand even about their own community online. And so it's, again, requires a whole various different types of skills to support and like fully make that impact and evaluate your impact of your organization. Any other questions? Literally anything. Does anyone care about baby sloths or something? Can I give you advice? I'm very serious. I could recommend organizations to anyone to pursue. We have a Colgate alum working at Pencils of Promise now. That's another educational nonprofit. He was just hired as the CEO. So, Colgate Network. Let me see if there's anything else. Any questions? Yes.
So this is unrelated to that, but the work that you've been doing with youth at Pine Ridge, I have gotten the sense from looking at your Twitter feed and stuff like that, that there are some good stories coming out of there. So I don't know if maybe you could give us a story, like of what your work in youth empowerment endeavors has enabled.
Oh, absolutely. So, for example, So, this is Bobby Poirier. The top line of words is Waksape Wakua, which means I seek knowledge in Lakota language. He cared deeply about just education, staying in school. There are very high dropout rates in the reservation, and he designed this project. He applied and helped himself, did a lot of fundraising to do this, and we toured with Bobby to almost all the schools on the reservation, and he put together a panel of role models in the community and recent graduates and people in school about the value of education, staying in school. And this messaging was directed at middle school students, and it was actually extremely effective because middle schoolers are just really enthusiastic and like haven't exactly gone through the awkward phase of high school and all that. And so trying to catch youth before we really see the dropout rates happening. And then at the end, they all signed this pledge to continue to seek knowledge. And he went on, so he was recognized for his service and met senators of South Dakota, was invited to visit them. He just spent his summer at Princeton University doing an enrichment program, and is now a senior in high school and is looking at colleges. But it's just been, a long line of success in terms of growing his confidence and just reaching for those opportunities. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Apologize. This is Keith with the president. Keith got involved with LCE. We actually were a feeder for another scholarship program called STEP. He was selected to finish his high school at Scarsdale High School in New York, and is the chair of our youth advisory board, and just recently received a Truman Scholarship. So he'll be continuing his education after he graduates from Villanova University, where he also received a Gates Scholarship to attend. So in terms of the rates of staying in school, staying engaged, civically engaged, and just giving back to their community is really empowering. And by these young people being elevated and their stories being elevated, it motivates the youth at home, because they feel like, well, now that's a role model that looks like me, that comes from where I come from, that seems possible for me too. And I guess another of our more recent would be Summer received a award last week from the National Indian Health Board. She wants to be a doctor, someday a pediatrician, and give back to her community in the health space. And she was the winner of our writing contest. She was a runner-up 2 years, became really involved in our youth board and started organizing a whole host of different programs, raising awareness about HIV in the community, where you can get tested, about eating healthy foods, like what foods are accessible for them to make healthier choices. She's done a whole host of different programs around that, and so she was recognized as one of the emerging leaders in Indian country, doing service for her community, and accepted into a college prep program, so that she will have the academic skills she needs at a competitive college. So we have a pipeline, and it's really exciting, and but there's always more to do and get done, right? So. Does anyone want to ask me where I lived freshman year? That's a question that's valid. Curtis Hall. Sorry. All right, well, I'm just before we depart, I'm just going to leave this up here. That's my email and my Twitter. But feel free to jot that down, send me a note. I will be up here actually quite, I guess, semi-frequently now through the Board of Trustees. So if you want to get coffee and talk about life and baby sloths, I'm always here. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Maggie.